Penn State wrestling makes it 70 in a row, surpassing the Iowa Hawkeyes in consecutive dual meet victories. Best in Big Ten Conference competition. They're still chasing Oklahoma State. We're going to get into all of that and more, plus some questionable results, if you will, from today's dual meet against Illinois as Penn State wins 29-9.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State Wrestling. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of Locked On Nittany Lions. Thank you so much for making us your first listen and watch every single day. Penn State Wrestling takes the win 29-9 over Illinois. That is 70 dual meet victories in a row. It's a historical precedent here as they are chasing Oklahoma State, the team that accomplished that over the course of the late in the 30s, 40s primarily. And I think that streak ended in 1951. So this is a massive piece of history that Penn State is going after. And it's par for the course. It was a dominant victory over Illinois. 7 out of 10 bouts went in Penn State's favor, and they weren't at full strength. Braeden Davis, not 100%. We'll talk about his defeat first and foremost. Joe Sealey getting his first career takedown, his first career victory robbed. It was taken from him. And then Cole Mirasola, just an uphill battle for him. So I think that's the appropriate place to begin, as there's a lot of concerns or questions about Braeden Davis and Joe Sealey. Cole Mirasola, there's an understanding that this is a redshirt season for a reason. So Braeden Davis and Joe Sealey are in a similar category in the fact that they haven't been healthy the entire season. These two have not gone through, and it's just the nature of the sport. It's just the nature of athletics in general, that you're not always going to be 100%. But I think it's fair to allot them some grace here, because Braeden Davis and Joe Sealey, despite the circumstances, I've been impressed with the way that they've competed. I've been impressed with the way that they have wrestled. And Joe Sealey was very well on his way to his first career victory, and it's taken from him by the referees. So we'll talk about Sealey in a moment and talk about Braeden Davis, because he is the starter at 133, where Joe Sealey kind of gets a little more of a pass is that Tyler Kasak's hurt, and you anticipate that Kasak should return. He's in concussion protocol, but he was out this weekend because that's what he's dealing with. Whereas Braeden Davis is working his way back from a leg injury, wrestling through it. And he looked, he picked up a win against Nick Bazakis. That's an All-America caliber wrestler. And then loses to someone that's probably closer, definitely closer to an NCAA title in Lucas Byrd. So Davis's result today is indicative of a couple of things. One, he's not 100%, and two, getting back adjusted to the speed of the game. And speed of the sport. I would normally expect Braeden Davis to be out in this type of situation. Because he does need to get back up to speed. But in that same conversation, or that it's going to be too much for him to go up against a Nick Bazakis and a Lucas Byrd. You expect him to lose maybe both of those. And that's why I'm impressed, because he defeated a Nick Bazakis when if he would have lost both of these matchups, completely would have been understandable. But I think that's what Cael Sanderson saw, is an opportunity when, okay, maybe we don't know exactly where Braeden Davis is in his recovery. If he's 85%, maybe he's 90%, but he's certainly not 100%. We can put it that way. So for Braeden Davis to go out there and defeat somebody that he's probably going to face at Big Tens, both of these wrestlers at Big Tens, he will more than likely face one, if not both of them, and then potentially at the NCAA tournament as well, when both of those guys fully expect to be on the podium. Nick Bazakis, a long shot to be at an NCAA title caliber type of level, but somebody that should certainly finish in the top 8. Braeden Davis goes and gets a victory when he hasn't wrestled in a few weeks on the road against Bazakis. The result today, this is about getting back up to speed. Lucas Byrd is a top 4 wrestler. He wrestled at the end. He was invited to the NWCA All-Star Classic. He is one of the better wrestlers at 133 and should absolutely contend for an NCAA title. This is not somebody that, whoa, how did he get here? No, Lucas Byrd he's been wrestling on at the collegiate level for quite some time. He should be anticipated to be near the end when all's said and done. So for Braeden Davis, this was an excellent opportunity for him to get adjusted to where he needs to be, because Penn State doesn't view him as somebody that's just a fringe All-American. Maybe he gets in. They view Braeden Davis as an NCAA title contender. And how you get back to that speed, how you get better is by wrestling when you are not 100% against the guys. It's different in practice. It's different in practice when you're going through the motions. And yes, iron sharpens iron. You're trying to get better, but no one is trying to intentionally defeat you. This is all about productive. You help me get better. I help you get better. That's thrown out the window against Ohio State and Illinois, where they are actively trying to defeat you and not help you get better as a teammate. So, yes, he's going through the motions at practice, but it's the competition where they don't care. They don't care if you're 100%. They don't care that you're working your way back from a knee injury. Davis wrestling against Bazakis and Bird will pay dividends over the course of the time to get back to where he needs to be, because Penn State does view him as somebody that can make a deep postseason run. He won the Big Ten tournament as a true freshman at 125 a season ago. There is no reason to expect. Am I making Davis the favorite at 133? Absolutely not. I think 133 has a lot of talented wrestlers, but we've seen what he's done against the likes of a Nasir Bailey, where he picks up a win. It's a 1-0 win, but he gets the win. He's defeated other All-America counterparts. Davis can be, when he's at full strength, a top 5 wrestler in this weight class. So I have full confidence in Braeden Davis if he can get as close to 100% as possible. The only thing that I think is holding Davis back is because he does look like a different wrestler. I don't see a lot of anything carrying over from his freshman season where he's passive. It's just he looks a step behind, and that's understandable because of the injury recovery. Let's get to Joe Sealey to wrap up this first segment, and then we're going to obviously get to your comments from the live chat as well. Joe Sealey should have won 4-2 today. Referees thought it would be Angel Rivera throws his 2 cents in, and Joe Sealey is robbed of his first career victory and first career takedown in the final seconds. He got that takedown in the final 12, give or take 10 to 15 seconds. So what a move what a throw by Joe Sealey as a true freshman and going up against a veteran caliber wrestler, and pulls off this win, and then the refs take it from you. I'm not sure what the discrepancy was. I know that, Kreiser countered with a whizzer, and okay, I get the move, but the takedown was already secured. I'm not really concerned about what counter that Kreiser had. It was the fact that the takedown was finished, and then that starts the process of, him getting out in an escape or a reversal or whatever, but time expired, and that's 4-2 with the riding point advantage for Kreiser. But nope, takedown, they said he didn't have full control or whatever it was, or the whizzer was in time. If you watch it frame by frame, that's not the case. And I don't know what they see. I really did not understand what the referees were seeing. They awarded 3 points on the match. During the match in real time. And it's not like the takedown was there, that let's say that Cael Sanderson had thrown the brick and said that, oh no, there was a takedown in this sequence. No, the call on the mat was that there were 3 points. This was a takedown, and then you don't have enough video evidence to overturn it. Let me explain Joe Sealey's situation as well, because I've seen concerns. People are voicing their frustration with Sealey, and that he's a top recruit. There really shouldn't be this much of a gap between himself and the competition. And for what it's worth, he's facing pretty solid wrestlers. Are there Cannon of Ohio State and now Kreiser of Illinois? Are they going to be on the podium? No. But Joe Sealey's in a similar situation where he was dealing with an injury as well, undisclosed. He's also cutting weight because I think his normal weight is 165. So this was an excellent opportunity to get Joe Sealey in some live competition. And I'll say this, I'll add to this. I don't think Penn State and Cael Sanderson just hand out bouts out of sympathy or pity or anything like that. Well, we know you have potential, so we're going to put you out there in the map because we think you're going to be elite long term. It means that Joe Sealey has to work his tail off in practice and win head to head, and maybe not necessarily an official wrestle off, but he's got to show to the coaching staff that he deserves that spot start, because Connor Pierce and David Evans have certainly had years and years and years to prove that they should be the next in line if it's at 149 or 157. But then Tyler Cael comes in, and Joe Sealey, who is at 165, makes the weight cut and gets ready for 157. So he goes up against a tough opponent. That's a top 20 wrestler from Ohio State. That's his first dual meet. That's some Big Ten competition. And no, it wasn't the prettiest. I'm not going to hold that against him. I think he should take a moral victory away from this one. And honestly, this should be a little bit motivational. You just had your first career victory robbed from you. How does that feel? Internalize that, take it with you, put it in your pocket, and then use that as a way so that you don't get in a situation where you do need to scramble at the end, where you do need the final 10 seconds. No, make it so it's so decisive that the referees don't need to get involved. Absolute learning moment for Joe Sealey. But I've seen good wrestling out of someone that hasn't been able to train at a full capacity this season for a true freshman. He's not the starter. He's not going into the postseason. Tyler Cael just needs to get healthy and return from concussion protocol. This is beneficial for Joe Sealey and his long-term development after this weekend. So plenty more to discuss. Penn State winning 29-9 over Illinois. We can go through some of those other individual bouts, plus contribute your thoughts and questions over in the live chat. That's all coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that action than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off, or you want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. So not even just before the game, during the game itself, you can create a same-game parlay. Using FanDuel's live betting feature is great because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether you're backing your favorite team for a late-game rally or you're picking a player to hit that clutch three, you'll never feel like you miss a chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you'll get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can bet $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That is FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, let's hop into the live chat. I see one comment so far, and it's simply wahoo from Cael, not Kale, as in the vegetable. Yes, 70 dual meet victories in a row is impressive. There is plenty to celebrate. I'm eager to see what the schedule is going to look like next season, because this record is going to carry over into next season. So they're going to get 71 with American. Sorry, American University. Penn State we can chalk that one up to a victory. So Penn State's going to finish with 71 here to end the 2025 portion of the season. So going into 2025, what dual meets are they going to schedule? Does this count with the, say they enter the national duels, run by David Taylor in Oklahoma State, and Penn State gets into a situation where right out of the gate, they're going to face some pretty elite competition. Now, I'm not trying to imply that Penn State is going to lose this streak or that somebody's going to break it, but it's not going to be as easy as, they're wrestling some non-conference opponents early on that are certainly not up to their standard, not the Drexels of the world, right? They'll schedule a non-conference opponent, a Lehigh, a Drexel, but it is going to. So by the time they get to Big Ten conference dual meet action, that's kind of when the record's going to be on the line, is that 76 is the record. That's to tie it with Oklahoma State. And then 77 is the mark where Penn State would hold it. So they need to win 5 more dual meets after American University to wrap up the season and then go into Big Ten Conference dual meet action, and we'll see. I don't think the national duels are out of the question. Now, Penn State and Cael Sanderson haven't exactly been too keen on saying whether or not they seem a little more resistant to the idea of it, as opposed to accepting like, oh yes, we're going to do it because and whatever the reason is, right? I agree with the sentiment that, oh, let's pass on it because we're going to face Ohio State, Iowa, Michigan. That's why dual meets like the Journeyman Classic, those are important, because Cael Sanderson strategically gets to schedule and wrestle outside competition that is obviously not up to the standard of Penn State, but schools that, hey, you're going to meet some of these wrestlers at the NCAA tournament in the postseason that you normally wouldn't routinely wrestle throughout the regular season. So we'll see what they ultimately do. Are they going to schedule Oklahoma State for an individual dual meet? I don't know. They have Wyoming. We know that. But Wyoming's kind of that top 20. They're similar to a Lehigh in a sense. But I think that Penn State, so depending, that's what I mean. I want to try to theorize this a little bit. Where would they be when they go to break that record? Who would kind of give them the biggest challenge? Because it's not a guarantee that they're going to face Oklahoma State in the final. They could face an Iowa. They could face an Ohio State. Teams that they are already going to face in the regular season. That doesn't help Penn State. And that's the point that Cael Sanderson is trying to make, is that we already wrestle these opponents. What is the point of wrestling them again at a national tournament in the preseason, especially when college wrestling already has enough high caliber events? That's the point he's trying to make. I really don't want to see anybody say, and it's mostly going to be outsiders. It's not going to be anybody that's close to Penn State fan, or somebody that covers the team that says, oh, Cael Sanderson and Penn State are ducking the competition. No, they are not by any means. So my thoughts there on the national rules. I would like to see them in it because I like the idea of wrestling Oklahoma State in this, winner take all championship type of setting. But I agree with Cael when he says that Ohio State, and he hasn't directly quoted this, but he's inferring to the fact that we don't need to wrestle Ohio State, Michigan, Illinois, Nebraska, Iowa, because we already do. What is the point of that when you don't know that you're going to wrestle Missouri. You don't know that you're going to wrestle Iowa State. You're more than likely going to wrestle a lot of the same teams, because a lot of the same teams are at the top of the Big Ten Conference, are in the top of the nation. And Penn State already goes out of its way to, like I said, the journeyman duels where you have Arkansas, Little Rock, where you have Missouri. Okay, so Penn State already does that. It's not like they're avoiding that altogether. They do that and then some. So the national duels aren't really necessary for the Nittany Lions. So that streak most likely will hold until we'll see. I can't imagine that they're going to get 4 dual meets in time by the time they face a top 3 Iowa team. We'll see. And that's without the national duels. If they go to the national duels, they're probably going to wrestle Iowa and or Oklahoma State, which would be great. But I understand why Cael Sanderson is not too keen on the idea of it. Wasn't watching today, so just listening. So didn't see the call against Sealey, but did see the call that went for Davis against Ohio State, and really don't understand how they took that back for the exposure points. So Braeden Davis and Nick Bazakis, that's debatable. I got to watch that back through. I certainly had the same understanding that, hey, there's going to be some near fall points here for Bazakis, and that's going to make it. But again, Braeden Davis scored a number of points in that dual meet. Let me see if I can pull up the score from that one real quick. Davis won 8-5. I think the discrepancy was that, so even still with those near fall points, Bazakis would have had 2 more, and Davis still wins 8-7. I mean, that's still impressive. Your first match back, you're wrestling an All-America caliber of opponent on the road, and you win. Whether it's by 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, it's the fact that he got a win. Lucas Bird is better than Bazakis. I would take Lucas Bird probably 8 out of 10 times. I think he wins 80% of the time in hypothetical matchups there. But Braeden Davis is right in the middle of that competition. So don't think because, Braeden Davis looked sluggish today, Braeden Davis looked exhausted today, that he's going to be that way in the Big Ten tournament. He's going to be that way in the NCAA tournament. This was an opportunity to really ramp up his revival in a sense. I don't want to recycle the phrase, get back up to speed. But that's what I'm saying, is that Braeden Davis is in a situation where he wasn't facing just a couple of casual unranked opponents. No, this was an opportunity that, okay, you might not be 100% in time for the NCAA tournament. So if that's the case, how do you do against competition when you're not feeling your best? Because that's the whole idea of elite competition. The reason Penn State is as great as it is because even on Penn State's lackluster days, as we saw against Ohio State, Penn State was not at full strength, missing Greg Kirkfleet, missing Tyler Cael, and Braeden Davis not being 100%. And they still won 27-13. So even on Penn State's bad days, if you will, and Ohio State wrestled its best. I thought Ohio State gave 120%. I thought they went above and beyond and wrestled nearly a perfect match when you go through it. Hartschla, D'Amelio, and Shane Van Ness didn't wrestle a perfect match, still gets the win. Bo Bartlett, I think, wrestled a perfect match and got the victory against Jesse Mendez. So that's my point, is that Ohio State wrestled damn near perfectly. Penn State was not at its best, and they still won as convincingly as they did. So that's why Penn State is elite, because even on their worst days, they're still better than everybody else. All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, continue to go through the live chat, go through some of these individual results as well. Cole Mirasola against Luke Luffman. That's a tough top 10 matchup, and he was one of the 3 losses in today's dual meet. That is coming up next here on this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. As I mentioned, quick break. So Penn State ultimately 29-9 victory, and 3 of those losses come from Braeden Davis, who we've already discussed, not at 100%. That's athletics. That's the sport of wrestling. Joe Sealey is in a learning situation, and he hasn't been training to the full capacity. It's not that, okay, he's been wrestling and we don't know the timeline. I'll ask Cael Sanderson about it. He's not going to give me specifics. Yeah, Joe Sealey was available here, and this is the injury that he was dealing with, and give me a full-on medical report, because it's not the right thing to do. But at least maybe give us a better understanding of how his recovery has gone. Is his plan to go to one? Because there's Joe Sealey's kind of all over the place in terms of his development. He comes in at 157. The plan is to wrestle him up at 165. And then there's a rumor that he's moving to 174. But then now we see that he's cut all the way back down to 157. So I can't make it in the 174 is strictly internet comments. That's not a Penn State coach saying, oh yeah, this is what we plan to do with Joe Sealey. My point being is that Sealey hasn't exactly had a strict blueprint into cracking the lineup. It's kind of been a lot of ups and downs, twists and turns, literally and figuratively, and then dealing with an undisclosed injury on top of that. So allow Joe Sealey a little bit of grace here. I know it comes with the territory. He is a top 10 pound for pound recruit. The Big Ten Plus broadcasts kept saying he was the #1 overall recruit in 2024. I don't think that's true. I think that's Luke Lilladall. But again, it depends where you look. If you look at Rockfin, if you look at Intermat, if you look at Flow Wrestling, whomever is doing these rankings, it is all different. That's why I just say, hey, conservatively, he is a top 10 pound for pound recruit in the nation. So Joe Sealey, certainly it comes with the pedigree, the expectations, but I am not going to put all this pressure on him just because he lost a couple of Big Ten dual meets when it is not his time to shine at the moment. Tyler Cael, though, the important part of all this is that Tyler Cael needs to get healthy. He needs to get right. He's in concussion protocol. You can't really rush that one back. Now, I am not an expert on concussions. I played a little bit of high school football, basketball, and baseball, okay? But when it comes to concussions, I know that there is a 4-week timeline, especially if they are serious. And Tyler Cael was certainly, he was getting knocked in the head a few times, just jabbed in the eye, and then ricocheted his head off the mat against Maryland. He was getting beat up in these past few dual meets between Iowa, Michigan, and Maryland. So I'm not surprised that Cael isn't 100% and had to go into concussion protocol. It just kind of kept building up at that point. So it's important to get Cael healthy and get him right. And the understanding is, based on what Cael has told us at these media availabilities, is that if Cael had to, he'd go out and wrestle. but precautionary. And he joked about how, well, we basically have to keep Cael from overexerting himself, that he wants to compete. He wants to be out there. And we have to kind of tell him, no, you got to settle down because you're not, you're in concussion protocol. It's teasing, it's joking, but all of that aside, Cael, I think, is in a 4-week timeline. So this kind of perfectly times up with the Big Ten tournament, that you sustain this injury against Maryland, you go through this weekend and you're not going to wrestle. I don't expect to see him against American. I don't expect him there. Now, could he this is speaking from a guess. This is simply my intuition. I don't have a report that says otherwise, but that's why we're going to talk to Cael on this Tuesday coming up, February 18th, and get a better idea of Cael's availability. But I don't expect him to wrestle against American. That's the kind of opponent where what does he really gain from maybe some action? But that's what the Penn State wrestling room is for. That's what the Penn State mat room's for. What do you need to prove against American when you're already wrestling the best of the best, that they don't compete at American? Do you get my point? They don't compete at American University. They're already there at Penn State. So it's different for Braeden Davis, who you have an opportunity to wrestle Nick Bazakis. You have an opportunity to wrestle Lucas Bird. I don't know American's lineup off the top of my head, but I guarantee you that at 157, there is not an All-America caliber wrestler waiting from American University. I don't mean to disrespect them like that, but facts are facts. So for Tyler Cael, it is better for him to rest on that 4-week timeline where you're hurt at Maryland, you missed this weekend, so this is 1 full week. The second full week of missing American, the third full week where you have a gap in between that and the Big Ten tournament, and there's that 4-week timeline when you get to the Big Ten tournament, and that's where Tyler Cael should be past his concussion protocol. Just kind of going off of the natural timeline for if it's a serious concussion, it's a 1-month thing at a minimum if you want to handle it right. Let's talk about Cael Sanderson, because I've talked about it going into the break and I saved it 5-6 minutes later, and then we'll go back into the live chat. So Greg Kirkfleet being unavailable, that's interesting. Illnesses can happen. I hope an injury that we don't know about in practice. I will talk to him about it on Tuesday. Hey, coach, where is Greg Kirkfleet? But the same thing that I say about Braeden Davis and Joe Sealey, different circumstances for Cael Sanderson, but anybody that says, oh, these freshmen aren't ready, they're not even going to be ready next season. There's the rumor is, and maybe, and I say rumor because I can't confirm any reports, that Cael Sanderson is wrestling around 220 pounds. So this was somebody that was competing at 97 kilograms and internationally. So forgive my math, but that's around what? 210, 215 pounds, maybe I'm over. So Cael Sanderson has put on 5 to 10 pounds of good, healthy weight. They're not going to just have him put on weight for the sake of putting on weight. His outlook is at heavyweight. So that's going to take time. He's wrestling guys like a Luke Luffman, a Nick Feldman, a Greg Kirkfleet in practice, who are all 250 pounds plus. And someone like a Gable Steveson, I would never give. I'm not trying to imply that I would give Cael Sanderson. I don't give a lot of wrestlers a chance against Gable Steveson. My point being is that someone who's 220 to 225 pounds, give or take, is wrestling competition that is 260, 270, potentially 285 pounds. That is 50 to 65 pounds. Way heavier than, and that's just unfair. It's just unfair. It's a part of the sport, but this is what redshirt seasons are for things like this. Greg Kirkfleet went through the same thing. He was a former 197-pound wrestler that ultimately moved up to heavyweight, and look how he settled in. If I have that right, I think I have that right, that he was originally 197 pounds out of the state of Minnesota, and then Penn State, Cael Sanderson said, hey, we think you'd be a better heavyweight. And look how Greg Kirkfleet's a national champion, and I know Gable Steveson exists. I know he's back for a final season, but Greg Kirkfleet still has a legitimate chance to knock off Steveson and be an a two-time NCAA champion. Easier said than done, but don't just discount Greg Kirkfleet. So Cael Sanderson is going through growing pains, if you will, in a sense, because he needs to add that weight, but don't let it be unnecessary weight to a point where it's unhealthy. And that's because that's not going to do anybody any favors. So that's going to take time to build that muscle. That's going to take a year and then some. I don't expect him to be a top 10, a clear-cut All-American type of wrestler even next season. His better wrestling will be towards February, March of his second season as a redshirt freshman. Don't expect him in November, December, January to hit the ground running. His better wrestling will be in February of March of 2026, if we're talking about Cole Mirasola specifically. So the results are in the books. Penn State 29-9 over Illinois, 70 dual meet victories in a row. Just to kind of recap all the results for anybody that missed it. Luke Lillidahl bounced back, but Riley of Illinois is not the best competition that he's going to face. A tech fall for Lillidahl, which is the second. He has 8 on the season, second most behind Mitchell Messenbrink, 19-3. That's business as usual. Lillidahl should have done that. We know that Lucas Bird defeated Braeden Davis 7-1. Bo Bartlett over Pacino of Illinois, 9-2. And then Pacino's somebody that he could face at Big Tens and NCAAs. We'll see a lower seed, but he's certainly someone that will be there. Van Ness against Webster, same thing. Major decision for Van Ness. There's a clear gap between the two, but that is a top 15 wrestler. Kreiser defeats Sealey on bad call. It's a bad call. You don't need to try to justify it anyway. It was the wrong call. Kreiser 2, Sealey 1. Messenbrink, a non-tech fall victory. This is the second time that someone has actually gone the distance with Messenbrink, but it's still a 10-1 major decision in favor of Mitchell. Levi Haynes over Danny Bronicle, 5-1. Carter Starachi over against Edmund Ruth. Yes, that Edmund Ruth, the younger brother of three-time NCAA Penn State champion Ed Ruth. That is right. So there's a clear distance between Starachi and Ruth is a top 12 wrestler in his own right as well at 184. And Starachi gets, it was the disqualification. That's right. It wasn't a tech fall. It was a disqualification because of too many stall calls. Josh Barr gets a major decision against Zach Bronigle, 15-4, and that's a talented wrestler in Bronigle in his own right. And then Luke Luffman over Mirasola, 4-0. Let's jump back into the live chat, pick back up on my spot where I left off. Let's see. The win streak will be more realistic of a goal than breaking the championship streak. Penn State will remain on top, but Oklahoma State might be poised to take a championship once in a while moving forward. It's a lot to project, right? It's a lot of things would need to go well. Oklahoma State is trending in the right direction, but okay, class of 2025 has to be a home run and be better than Penn State's. Class of 2026, it's looking that way, but they still have to develop. It is hard to just say simply off of recruiting rankings that Penn State is in any sort of trouble just because Bo Bassett goes to Iowa and Jax Forrest goes to Oklahoma State. And I know what Oklahoma State is getting in terms of recruiting, but Penn State set its own precedent with 2024 and 2025. Marcus Blaze, PJ Duke in 2025. How many top 10 wrestlers pound for pound in the country in 2024? I've lost count. And then 2026 already has one top 20 recruit. They could get more. And then 2027, 2028, right? There's the transfer portal. Penn State just has a lot of names that are going to redshirt and pop up at a point in time. You're going to see more timelines that are similar to Josh Barr than you are going to see Carter Starachi and Aaron Brooks. Now, Marcus Blaze will start at 141, but my point is that a lot of things need to go right for Oklahoma State and Iowa to topple Penn State. They need a lot to go right. It's more than just Bo Bassett. It's more than Jax Forrest. You need a lot to go in your favor. No need to schedule Oklahoma State. I mean, I agree with that. It's just for the entertainment value of it. Put it in Beaver Stadium. I want to see a Beaver Stadium duel to open up the season, be that headlining matchup, but now you have the national duel, so that really complicates things. I don't even know that David Taylor would be interested in that at this point. That was the worst call against Sealey today. Couldn't agree more. I wouldn't do it if I were Cael either, so this goes back to the national duels, not only because they wrestle a ton of top teams, but it is because it would draw more attention to Oklahoma State. Interesting in terms of it would help out David Taylor and recruiting. And that's exactly why David Taylor is doing this. It's in Oklahoma. It's not like it's another neutral site. It's in Oklahoma. This is absolutely why David Taylor is doing this for, yes, some of the sake of the competition, but the publicity, the chance to promote Oklahoma State. Good angle on that. It crossed my mind, but I haven't really thought about it too deeply like that. Angel Rivera is horrible. I can't believe he is reffing Big Ten matches. It is what it is. Like I said, I hope Joe Sealey kind of uses that as motivation, that this was taken from me. How do I get it to a point where this can never happen again? When I coached, I always said, how good are you when you are tired? I don't care how good you are while you are fresh. Finishing strong when you are tired is what counts. And that's Cael Sanderson is preaching that and then some for Penn State. That's why it's, at times, why does somebody like Luke Lillidahl seem tired? Why is Braeden Davis exhausted? Why are some of these wrestlers, Josh Barr and Mitchell Messenbrink and Levi Haynes, right? Carter, right? All those guys that have been doing this year. Well, Josh Barr is already, I mean, he's already kind of maxed out. He's already kind of hit that threshold of he's better when he's tired. As the match goes on, he gets better. But Luke Lillidahl and Braeden Davis to an extent, right? You see it with Joe Sealey. You see it with Cole Mirasola. They just don't have the gas tank. So that's exactly it. If you want to simplify it, how good are you when you are tired? And that's what Penn State and Cael Sanderson emphasize. Can you win when you are not at your best? And that's what separates elite competition from good to great. And everybody, Oklahoma State's doing that. Iowa's doing that. Northern Iowa, etc. I get that. But it's not across the board this consistent as it is with Penn State. Cole looked good against two top 20 guys. Absolutely. I can't remember if it was a major decision against Nick Feldman. See if I have the score handy. It was not. So it was 2 decision victories because he lost 10-3 and then 4-0 to Luffman today. So I've been very impressed. That is somebody that is wrestling and giving up 40 pounds of weight to his competition. Good on Cole Mirasola for the way that he's competed. We have so many top recruits who aren't going to be able to find a spot next year. And if a recruit isn't able or isn't willing to go through that timeline to follow that blueprint, go somewhere else. If you think that you are entitled, you deserve to start 4 years in a row with no red shirt, no gray shirt, no Olympic training, so be it. Go somewhere else. It's going to look different. It's not going to be a Carter Starachi situation every single time. And I'm not even talking about the 5th NCAA championship opportunity. I'm talking about coming in and starting as a freshman and wrestling 4 years in a row and being a 4-time national title. You're going to have to go the Josh Barr route. You're going to have to go the Joe Sealey route. Some of it's based on need. Some of it's not. So what are you willing to do as a recruit if you want to be at the best wrestling program in the world? Penn State doesn't need another tournament because of who they are, and they are everyone's best every single week. Exactly. Connor Mirasola, what is Cole's brother? What weight is Cole's brother? 197. And there's the answer for it. Yep, 197. So see, people are responding in the live chat back and forth with one another. Cael has a method to his madness. I don't think he wanted Bo Bassett. He doesn't like wrestlers with a huge social media platform. I would rather have PJ Duke. I think people forget he is coming to Penn State. Well, let's finish with that one. Because we are a little bit over time. I like to keep these at 30 minutes. I agree with you. I agree that I don't think Penn State exactly wanted Bo Bassett because it's the Bo Bassett show. And this is not me trying to insult a high school wrestler or come down on him or anything else. Facts are facts. There is a lot of publicity that surrounds Bo Bassett. There's a lot of publicity that surrounds Iowa. I get it that Carter Starachi will take to social media from time to time and stir up some drama. But it's not to the point where there's cameras and videos and live streams and all this stuff. There's all this social media content of a day in the life of Bo Bassett, part 1000. That's his shtick, and that's fine. But you notice how Penn State doesn't operate that way at all. Iowa does, actually. There's a good amount of social media content around Iowa wrestling. They're social media influencers, whether they're former competitors, former wrestlers, former just mixed martial arts competitors, whatever it is. There are people that are around the Iowa, and Flow Wrestling is going to follow Bo Bassett one way or another. Does Penn State? I don't think it's about Penn State not wanting Bo Bassett. I think it's about Penn State not wanting Flow Wrestling at their doors every single day. Feel free to disagree, but I think Penn State didn't turn down. I don't think Penn State did not want Bo Bassett. They didn't want Flow Wrestling. And to compare and contrast Bo Bassett and Jax Forrest to Marcus Blaze and PJ Duke, 1 and 2 from the respective 2025 and 2026 recruiting classes. What is the difference between both pairs of wrestlers? Flow Wrestling. Find me a commitment video from PJ Duke. Find me a live stream duel match of Marcus Blaze's or PJ Duke's that are outside of a tournament. You can't. You can't find any of that type of content on YouTube, but you search up Bo Bassett, you search up Jax Forrest, there is video after video after video. So that is a good point and something to think about with the way that Penn State likes to operate its wrestling, that Cael Sanderson likes to operate his wrestling program versus Iowa and anybody else. I think that's a good stopping point. Little bit of a hot topic as we end this wrestling live stream, but that will do it here on this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Thank you so much for checking out the show. I appreciate each and every one of you, especially getting involved in the live chat too and contributing to the conversation. If you are new to the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. We talk about everything here. Penn State football, Penn State wrestling, Penn State basketball, your favorite Penn State sports teams. It's your team every day here over on Locked On Nittany Lions.